Good evening, everyone. My name is John Taves, and I'm the event coordinator at McNally Robinson Booksellers. We're broadcasting live tonight from Treaty 1 territory, the traditional territory of the Anishinaabeg, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, the homeland of the Métis Nation. I'd like to thank you for joining us here in the Zoom webinar and say hello to all of you watching live on YouTube, both now and in the future. We are here to celebrate the fifth book in the Shame epic fantasy graphic novel series, Hell's Flaw, written by Laverne Kanjurski and illustrated in sumptuous watercolor by John Bolton. This book, as well as the rest of the Shame series, which you can see arrayed behind me, are all published by Renegade Arts Entertainment. And Alexander Finbow from Renegade Arts will be joining us here this evening to talk about the book as well. Just a few brief housekeeping notes before we get underway. Copies of the entire series, including an anthology edition of the first 3 installments, are available from McNally Robinson Booksellers, either in person, for the time being at least, over the phone, or online. We can courier books to you if you live here in Winnipeg, and we can also ship locally, nationally, and internationally via Canada Post. So please do avail yourself of some of these incredible graphic novels. There will be an opportunity to ask questions as well as too. So if any of you here in the webinar have any questions, you can feel free to just write those in the Q&A box, which you will find at the bottom of the screen. Rest assured, you will not interrupt us if you enter a question there. Please also feel free to chat amongst yourselves in the chat. At the end of the evening, I will be copying down the chat and I can send it to the participants so they can see what you have to say, if you have anything to say. But that's enough from me right now. Right now, I would like to introduce your host for this evening. Oh, not in that screen. So Holly Halftone is a varied artist, author, and product manager residing in Montreal. Born in Winnipeg, she grew up spending most of her time hiding indoors, avoiding colder than Mars temperatures, and tearing through packs of printer paper and multitudes of sketchbooks, constantly creating. In the vein of other artists hailing from the city, she attributes much of her skill to regular hibernation and introvert tendencies. A self-published graphic novelist, Holly is launching her first full-length young adult novel just as soon as she finishes battling through the editing process, but until then is getting her new business, Book Demons, up and running. Book Demons is a helper organization striving to carve out a safe haven online, free from those who aim to take advantage of fledgling authors. Through writing education, editing services, and creative mentorship, Book Demons' fluid DIY system allows writers to set out on their own path with the support that they deserve. And Lovern Kindzierski just so happens to be one of the creative mentors you can get in touch with through the Book Demons website. Please join me in welcoming your host for the evening, Holly Halftone.
Hey, John, thanks so much for introducing me and giving us this platform. One of the things I really miss about being away from Winnipeg is launches at McNally Robinson, so it's cool to actually be able to participate. It's my pleasure tonight to introduce Lovern Kindzierski, who also happens to be my dad. Laverne is a Canadian writer from Winnipeg, known for his work with DC Comics, Marvel, Dark Horse, and many, many more. He's been active in the industry now for over 3 decades, making him what I would refer to as a graphic novel great. While you may also know his work in color, he's been writing since 1997 when he penned 6 issues of the Tarzan series for Dark Horse, which got him nominated for Best Writer at the Harvey Awards. Now he is launching the 5th in his critically acclaimed Shame series titled Hell's Flaw, published by Renegade Arts Entertainment and beautifully brought to life through the art of John Bolton. We also are lucky to have Alexander Finbow on our panel. He is the Director of Operations at Renegade, which involves finding authors and artists to work with, figuring out publishing schedules, and working with distribution, marketing, and promotion chains to find new readers. He is responsible for giving Shame a home and getting it to where it is today with us. So if you guys would like to hop on, we can launch into some conversation.
Hello.
Hello. So I know that you've both had a couple busy weeks with Hell's Flaw coming out. And Laverne, you've been doing interviews, you've both been promoting online. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. It's fun to have all this interest, because that's always the dread, that when you're creating something, is that there won't be any.
Very true. And Alex, how about you from the publisher's end of things?
Yeah, it's been another good busy week at the Mountain Lair. Yeah, and there is lots of interest, Laverne. I have 2 purchase orders that we have to fill tomorrow to restock distributors with the whole series of 5 books, which is really nice this early into the release with the book only just coming out. So
Yay.
It's great.
Excellent. So we are going to start off by showing a bit of the book before we get into my questions and then your questions. Laverne has provided me with some scans of proofs from the graphic novel. If you don't know what proofs are, they are the completed pages, but without any of the text overlay. So we won't be getting any major spoilers from looking at these. Keep it mysterious. And as graphic novels are not exactly made for readings, we do generally prefer to go the visual route. And I'm going to start you off, though, by reading our little intro. I've got my book right here, which tells us what happened last time with shame. The reign of shame was through. Mother Virtue had lain waste to the ancient evil that was slur. Shame had been blasted into the infernal realm, body and soul. Merritt, Fate's sword, had survived a journey through hell and back to rescue the soul of Shame's child. That soul now resided in the body that had been prison to Virtue's soul and was now the child Hope. Grace and her rebels put fire to the castle and routed the palace guard. Of her group, only she had survived and not turned tail. Merritt and Hope joined with Grace and a determined band of rebels as they ventured to Cradle to thwart Shame's desires to manifest a gateway to hell. So we're starting off strong here. And I'm just going to share my screen. And as we go through these slides, Laverne and Alexander, if you would like to tell us a bit about the pages, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, there's page 1 and 2. They won't pop up that way in your book, but that's where we started off, and this is the well, it isn't the introduction of the witches, but it's showing more of them, because in the previous issue they were all bound up, like the 2 that are behind this prominent one in the foreground. And you can see the black blots that the shadows have become from previous issues. They've become what's the word? It's hard to say something that is corrupt as them is corrupted, but they're bound as servants to the witches, and so they're not themselves, and they're going up and defending the witches against any of the monsters that are hanging around the beautiful little glade that, pardon me, what was once the beautiful little glade around Cradle, which is now, well, a taste of hell.
They've gone through quite the evolution themselves through the entire series.
Yes, it's good to have fun with your creations.
Oh yeah.
This is the sort of thing that I waited to see, with great anticipation, because on the page on the left, it's basically what's left of Cradle, or sort of the gates to the gates of hell, and I had no idea what he was going to do with it in that, so it was wonderful to see, and his visualizations never disappoint, and then once they're into that entrance on the next page, you can see they're basically walking through labyrinth that Cradle has become, as shame has become more corrupt, so is Cradle. And Cradle is sort of like the battery for all the magic in this realm at this point, because it's still linked in with shame and with virtue, and now with hope. They're all entangled. And there we have our wonderful little friend Shame in a pool of leeches. And I don't know if I'm giving too much away here, but you can see that basically she has no body. That's just her head.
She's not doing too great.
Yeah, that's in conversation with the witches, and they actually go to the place that Shame opened up in the first book to blast her baby's soul down to hell.
That was the first clue that she didn't die in
Yes.
the last book, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Well, book 3.
But like in comic books, who dies anyway?
Can always be brought back.
All it takes is a bright idea, and there you have it.
Yeah. How many times did they get brought back in Buffy and Supernatural?
Well, yeah, there's that too. But then Whedon was a big comic book fan, so
Exactly.
that may have had a bad influence on him. I don't know. And then now we catch up with Merritt and Grace and Hope, and well, you'll have to wait to see what's going on there to buy the book, and you'll see the dialogue. And then we switch back to the witches, and they're definitely getting up to no good, taking big breaths of the horrible acrid odors of coming out of Hell's Flaw.
And I worry about smog.
Well, this is super smog.
Yes.
Yeah. And we have on the left there, we've got Merritt talking with kind of the leader of the men that are aiding them in this little mission. His name's Vilfredo, and John and I like him a lot. He's fun.
He's got good style.
The ruffles, you can't go wrong.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we've got that little preview to whet your appetite. And as someone who has actually read the book, I can tell you it is extremely well worth the buy. And if that did not interest you, I would be shocked. So I'm going to fire a couple questions over to these two before you all get your opportunity to do the same. So Hell's Flaw, it's the 5th in the larger Shame saga, 2nd in the Hope trilogy, and you've got 4 more issues coming after this. How does it feel to be just past that halfway point of this project, which especially you, Laverne, have been bouncing around in your head for a couple decades now?
Yeah. Well, almost 3, I guess, because the first book came out after about 2 decades. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, putting on the mileage. It's really great to see coming out because of the history of waiting and actually coming to terms at certain points with the fact that I wasn't finding anybody who wanted to print it in that, and a couple of times I had, but John wasn't available, and so I thought I was cursed, which goes back to the inspiration for the story, but
It is
I don't know what it's.
Sorry.
I don't know. I think this is sort of just more business as usual for Alexander. It's not the only book that he's got in the what do you call it again? The lair?
Mountain Lair.
The
Yes.
mountain lair, yeah. My studio is the frozen fortress of solitude most of the year.
Well, yeah, that makes
I'm
sense.
I'm living in humidity these days. Yeah.
Yeah,
So the first trilogy in the Shame Saga actually wrapped up on a more uplifting note, but we may have faced the death of virtue, but all in all, the good guys won. Now with the Hope books, we're plunged into darkness once again. Now this might be a little bit of a complex one, but I wanted to ask what you see as the overarching theme of this latest trilogy. What are you wanting the readers to come away with when they finish Hell's Flaw? Or will they not really get to know that until they read Cradle's End, the final book in this trilogy?
I find that a difficult question to answer because in my head, it's all the 9 books that it's going to end up being is the story to me. So, I mean, in this arc anyways, I'm sort of coming back and you're seeing that, did the good guys really win? Because things are being revealed, and there's more that Shame has up her sleeve in that. But I guess what I'm doing here is playing with the balance of Hope's soul, because although she's not in hell anymore, her soul isn't entirely pure. Not like Merritt's anyways.
Well, with that name. So I mentioned earlier that you've been active as both colorist and writer for the past 3+ decades, but for around, I guess it's a decade now, you have been making writing your main focus. So what has it been about writing that you love that's been luring you slowly away from color, and how has that transition been?
I have loved all of the color work that I've worked on, and I've had amazing opportunities to work with bucket list artists and on incredible stuff and things that I could have only dreamed about when I was a kid. But through that, that process, my voice has been really, really, really little, because the color, I get to say things with the color and that, but it's so much in the background. It's not the television set, which is the focus of the living room. It's the carpet, sort of thing. And so I've wanted to have that voice. Certainly, when I was drawing my comics that I had some idea about publishing, or suddenly I'd draw my little 3-page story and send it off to Marvel and DC. They would look at that and they would hire me to do the same thing with the Avengers, et cetera, et cetera. But so I always wanted to be telling the stories. But life pushes you where it wants to, and so it took a long time before I finally had the opportunity to write the Tarzan stories, even, and then to look for other opportunities. And basically, what I was doing then was, it was more of my voice, but it was work for hire. It was talking for someone else, doing stories for Star Wars, or a story for Star Wars that was explaining something from Star Wars was me filling in for George, or with the Tarzan stuff, I was doing actual fill-in stories where I was writing things that fit into the canon of what Burroughs wrote. And so it becomes an extension of him in that way. So when I finally got to write Shame, I'm it's me. I'm not working with somebody else's, I'm not cutting somebody else's grass.
So really, this is the point that you wanted to get to all along.
Yeah.
Right. So as someone who has had the inside scoop on this the whole way, others might not know the path that Shame did take to publication. You mentioned looking for, the right home for Shame. And it started as a story you told to entertain while en route to your honeymoon, but it's evolved quite a bit since then. Can you talk a bit about the evolution of Shame as a concept and how you did get to where you are today?
Oh, well, basically Shame came to me in a flash, or flask, if you like. And so that first book, the first issue, was just sort of formed full in my head as I was, at first I wasn't going to tell that story to fill in the time on the drive. I was actually going to relate a story that Wally Wood did back in, I'm not going to remember which book it is, Creepy or Eerie, one of the Warren magazines. And he did it back in 1970. And it was a little short story about a guy who ends up the pawn between these two witches that are fighting. And that's the story I was going to tell. But as I was doing that, I was thinking about my audience and thinking about mothers and daughters, and I started to see a different story behind the mother and the daughter in the story, The Curse by Wally Wood. And so I made that little story up for the next, I don't know, I related it for the next half hour of the drive. And then the next morning, I wrote it down and had notes. But the more I looked at it, and that more Shame revealed more of herself to me. Like I think any writer working on a character, as you're writing out her story, she's defining who she is. And so more and more of that came up. And so that when I was talking to John about and asking him to illustrate it, it was not the story exactly as I had written it down that morning. It was more developed. And then when I wrote the first plot up, because we work Marvel style, where I give him a plot and he illustrates the story, and then I dialogue it. And when I wrote that up, again, it went through some changes, and then it went into hibernation for a while. But there was interest from a production company in LA about it. And when I showed them the story, they loved the story, but they wanted it to be modern. And so I wrote a story about Shame today, like being alive today, and what that fairy tale would be like. And it's a little bit more like, it's a little bit more like the television series Lucifer. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so it went through that, and then I, John and I never give up. So we kept, mentioning it when we had opportunities, and so when Alexander was looking at hiring me to do some color work, we were talking, and I can't remember if he asked me or if I asked him.
Let me jump in at this point, because this story I've told so many times at industry events and writing workshops and pitching and all those kind of things. It's like, from my point of view, like I'd known you for about 5 minutes, and you were on board to do 6 minutes to color the Locksley's and the War of 1812 series. I think Claude Summerban recommended. that we get in contact for you to work on the book. And then I was driving into Calgary and I was going over the bridge from Edmonton Trail to the downtown core, doing store visits to pitch to retailers. And the phone rang and I was on hands-free and it was you. And I was like, oh no, Laverne's got something from Marvel or DC. He's gonna have to drop out from coloring the book. But then you said you wanted to pitch me a story. And my brain's going, are you serious? Like, we've just started working together and now you're pitching me a book? It's like, as a publisher, you get pitched all the time, right? And you walk into a room full of people and what do? I'm a publisher. Oh, well, I've got a story. Let me pitch you something. And you're like, oh, okay, here we go. And I remember this so clearly because the pitch was short to the point and it was great. And I was like, okay, tell me a little bit more. And then he told me a bit more, like the initial pitch, I think at the time it was when the purest woman on earth has one selfish wish, it creates the most powerful and evil woman who's ever lived, something like that. Yeah. I was like, that's a good hook. I like that. That's easy to get people interested. And then there was the longer paragraph long outline of how the first book went. Mm-hmm. And then you finished it off with, and John Bolton wants to paint it. I was like, great pitch. This plot sounds good. And there's a very good illustrator who wants to work on the book already. Okay, you can keep pitching. That's fine. It's a very memorable pitch. I think it's the most memorable pitch I've had.
Wow.
Oh,
I remember that time as very exciting because I'd been growing up hearing about shame sort of on and off over the years, and now it might be this, maybe it could be this, and then we finally met you and everything just came together, and it was cool to see that happen.
Yeah, I think the universe threw us together at the right time to make
absolutely
like the right place in John's career as well to be able to into it. I mean, yeah, it's crazy. It's just the way these things work out when they're meant to.
Yeah. Story of my life.
So I have one last easy one for both of you before I take a look and see if we've got any questions from our viewers. Do you have an expected release time for the next book after this? I'm sure that readers will really be wanting to get their hands on it the second they finish Hell's Flaw.
My answer to that would be when John's finished, I guess.
Yeah, we have for readers who don't know, the agreement we have with John Bolton is that he doesn't charge us his top rate. And his top rate is what he deserves when he spends days painting watercolor illustrations for a comic book. So we don't have to pay that. And in return, he doesn't have to have a deadline. So he can take as long as he wants. And John is a perfectionist. So if he's not happy with a page, he'll keep going at it until he's got it right. And if he's really not happy, he'll rip it up and start again. So he could spend 3 months on a page if he wanted to. And he does. But we have in the schedule right now, middle of April 2022, for the release.
And the beautiful work really shows.
Yeah, but we'll see. Like life, who knows? COVID messed things up for a lot of people and slowed schedules down. So hopefully the universe will be kind to John. Like the script's been approved. He's working on his layouts at the moment. The painting will start very soon. And yeah, 2022 is what we've got in the schedule.
Well, I'm excited.
And I'm going to turn off the robot vacuum cleaner, which has just kicked into life. So carry on.
All right, I'm going to open up this Q&A box here. Oh, we do not have any open questions yet that I can see anyway. Let's see, what do we have going on in the chat? We've got a hooray and a Wallywood, nice. So I see that there are 11 participants in here. If anyone would like to throw questions over to, oh, here we go. Are you signing the books somehow by request, or do you have anything set up for that, Laverne?
No, I would, but I don't know what we can do. What's Renegade set up to do or what the stores would do. I mean, I could go to the stores in Winnipeg and sign the books for them to sell there, but that's about it. Unless we had
you should go into McNally Robinson and sign some books for them, and offer that to the comic book stores in Winnipeg too.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a great segue into talking about the Kickstarter campaign to support the book, which isn't selling the book because the book's already out there. So the Kickstarter will be to get signed book plates and prints to go with the book that you can get from your comic book store and your bookstore. So that'll be launching in a week or two. It was meant to launch a few weeks ago, but unfortunately some personal reasons that we're not going to go into here meant that we had to put it back a little bit. But you will be able to get signed tip-in book plates, some exclusive beautiful prints of John's artwork. And he's even said he's open to doing some commissions as well.
Oh, wow.
Get
That's
the book
great.
from McNally, and then stay tuned to us and to Laverne and to Holly for information on getting hold of the signed booklet and the printed.
We'll all be promoting.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else?
I have a question for Laverne. Do you want to give us a little hint about the arc of the story for the last trilogy in the series?
The last trilogy in the series?
Good one.
Yeah, just a hint. I don't want you to give away the plot because I know you like to get into the weeds of the plotting of everything, but just a hint.
Well, the hint is one of those things that I would hope expect by now, that I like to turn things upside down if I can, or at least come at things from a completely different direction. So the people or persons or characters that win in the end of the arc are going to be the biggest losers.
Curious.
Do I need more? Do you need more of a hint for that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's see, like you know what's happening in the next book, which is everyone will find out it's called Cradle's End. So that kind of tells you what is part of the story will be happening. And then when we go into the next, the tableau will be set, and it's not going to be anywhere we've been. Well, I shouldn't say it's some places where Merritt's been before, and that, but it's going to be set up as what I work with so many archetypes on this that as I was writing this story, I found that I was taking away options the more I wrote. And I found that when I sent Cradle's End, I don't remember if you were in or on the emails, Alexander, but John was talking about, the same thing. What's the next story? And when I told him, he was like, "Oh, of course, that's where it's going." So it's the next arc grows out of what we've done in here, but what John's going to do to illustrate it is going to be, a treat for me. And I'm hoping that I'm throwing the ending as kind of a surprise so that people will be rewarded. But I'm also hoping that they'll go, maybe they're shocked by the end, but then in afterthought, they'll be going, "Oh, of course, it couldn't end any other way."
I can say that is exactly what I thought when you divulged it to me.
Good. But I really, I don't know how much more to say. I mean, you know what Shame has been fighting for throughout. She's bringing it to be, but as you said, the good guys won at the last one. But then, do they really? Is that a better hint?
Yeah, I like it.
I think that's a pretty good tease for the next round of books for sure.
Agreed.
Agreed.
No
Well,
questions?
no, we had a question about book availability, but I think we have covered that. So I will throw out a last chance for questions if anyone wants to toss them into the ring.
Oh, and I guess at this point we might as well say that the questions don't have to be about Shane. Does that make a difference?
True. If you've had everything answered about Shame, this book, or any of the previous or upcoming ones, if you want to ask Laverne anything or Alex.
Yeah, I'll answer any questions.
What else are you working on? I mean, writing.
What else am I working on? I am writing an autobiography. I'm in the process of writing an autobiographical story, and for the first time, I'm going to be my method of writing has never included, the little cards that you put up with the incidents and you play with them to make the plot. Mm-hmm. But this one, because it's about, because of the nature of the story and that, and because I'm actually talking to other people, and it's about a year of my life, I'm coordinating things, and I think I'm going to have to write out the cards and sit down and talk with the other people about what was happening to us at that point, because I didn't necessarily know what was going on with other characters. And it's kind of like my book Underworld was based on the Odyssey and sort of about me, but not really. This one's the same thing, and this one's based on Faust, but this one will be actually much more accurate to my life. I'll be the main character. It won't be some guy called Homer.
Cool. We did have a question. John would like you to describe working with John Bolton. What is that like?
Boy, it's like when John said yes, I was like, somebody has to pinch me, because I think he just said yes, but I'm not sure I believe it, and I thought something would happen, and that, et cetera, but working with John has been so rewarding because of his happiness with the story. He's so thrilled with it. When I sent him that plot to Cradle's End, he sent me back an email saying that, if this isn't made into a film by someone somewhere at some time, it'll be a crime against humanity sort of thing. And so I know he loves the story, because I know he's turned down certainly more high profile pieces than that. And as I worked with him, I found out how much more we have in common and what our real loves are. And so this was, as much as I love doing the story, John loves it too. It's I'm very early on, he said it's going to be his Gormenghast. And I was blown away by that. So to have the respect of someone that you hold in such awe is it's pretty heady stuff.
And the way your creativity flows together, that always just works very well, right?
Oh,
when
yeah.
You're collaborating.
Oh, and it is, as I said, it is a real collaboration, because when I write out the plot, there's stuff there that I'm relying on him to build on, and certainly when I just like something that, like the creation of Slur, my idea for him was it's a demon, and it was inspired by Dickens because it's the demon of ignorance, and immediately he was off and running, and he was telling me about what he had been doing to that he wanted to use to build the creation, and it was, you know, miles above what I had in mind, because all I had in mind was that it was a hermaphroditic creature, and that it had sewn its eyes shut, and I didn't have any pictures of it that I had drawn, and I hadn't thought about that, or even what shame looked like, and so to get sketches from John, I don't know if you've seen, if Alexander, have you seen the first picture of shame?
The first picture that John did, or
He did a painting probably a month after we had agreed to work on it. Did he ever show you that?
maybe I've seen other artists stuff that they did way back, but I'm trying to remember.
It's her, and she's got like paint or shadows over her face, and she's standing, and she's wearing like a mini skirt and a jacket, like a suit jacket, and she's tearing the suit jacket open to bare her breasts, but there's no breasts there. It's Virtue's face.
I don't think I have seen that.
Maybe
You
we'll
have to ask him to show you that.
We should see if we can show that off on the Kickstarter maybe when that goes live. That could be pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we actually did have another question come in from Cindy. She said, I'm a newbie and quite fascinated by this. May have found my summer reading. Have you written regular novels of your own? Regular meaning non-graphic.
Prose? No, I've written some prose short stories for a couple of different publications, but that's about it. But I have other graphic novels that I've done that aren't like Underworld isn't your regular sort of graphic novel because of the artist I was working with and his method, and that it's very much like a wow, what's the word for it? It's very arty and conceptual, and because it's working from photographs and what Gregory Kamichik does with them, and that it's very much the imagery is very much more of a dream sort of place, even though it's actual photographs of Winnipeg and of me and stuff like that. It's very otherworldly.
Tarek, do you have a collection of your short stories, like your prose stories?
No, I don't. I probably need to do that at some point.
Yeah, that would be good. That'd be great.
Well, that in a way, that's what Faust is going to be. I was going to write it out as part of a short stories, and I was going to do a bunch and collect them and talk to you about it at some point. And then I realized that the short story I was going to do just wouldn't do well, and it needed more. And I ended up there was an incident in there that I was going to do, and I realized, well, it's nice, but everybody's going to want to know. Like if I was reading it, I'd go, there's so much that happened before and after this, I have to know more. So that's when I started looking at Faust and made the connection between a friend of mine at the time a person who I thought was a friend of mine at the time, and turned out to be my Mephistopheles. And then I was off and running.
I've got another question for you from Christopher. Is Shame a sort of magnum opus or flagship of your work in your mind? If so, did it start that way? If not, does something else hold that title in your mind, or is there simply no real favorite project? It's a good question.
Well, I guess there is no favorite project. It's like when people would what would happen to me in my other life as a color artist is some people would come up to me at conventions and tell me, it's obvious this is your favorite color. And I'd be like, I don't have a favorite color. Sorry to disappoint you. But a magnum opus, wow. I'd never considered that. I was hoping to do a lot more writing and that, and I don't know. I mean, certainly at this point, it's the greatest work I've done, but I don't know what's around the corner.
Well, you've only got what, another 6-8 years before you can get on to the next one.
I will be working on other things like I did Necromantic and Underworld.
This one has taken up, multiple decades of your life. So I think it holds quite a special place for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because it opened so many doors for me, and well, actually Alexander opened the doors for me, but this made him open his door to look to see who was out there. So yeah, just because of that alone, it's always going to be special. And of course, I love my naughty little girl. So
she is lovable for all her evil.
Yes.
Well,
what's not to like?
I think that is a really good spot to wrap it up, actually. Is there anything else that you'd like to add, Laverne or Alexander?
I don't know, Alexander, what do you think? There's something else I should mention, or are we good?
I would just say thank you for being here, and the Shame series, which started off as a book and then became 3 and then is now 9, is in my opinion, having read Laverne's work, and Necromantic is a fantastic book, and Underworld is a fantastic book, but I think Shame is one of those things that like you tap into something in the universe and it kind of writes through you, if you know what I mean. It transcends. So it almost feels like it's this, when we look back on your career, that this series will be up there as the pinnacle, in my opinion. I mean, the combination of your storytelling and John's storytelling, it's that sweet spot. And I think everyone will enjoy the series, and they should go out and buy it from McNally, and then sit back and just get lost in the world of Shame.
Yeah, I would thank you for publishing it, and I'm thankful for this opportunity to have this little convention that's not a convention, this launch that's not not in person, but and thanks to all the, I think there's 11 people on the chat now.
13.
13? Oh, well, thank you all for coming. And I think that it's true. It's Shame is more than what I would have done, or it's a thing where it's greater than all of its parts, because it's not something John would have done on his own, and probably not what I would have done on my own. So I think it's it's the goal of every collaboration, is to make something greater than yourself.
Yeah.
And it is so unique that I think that anybody who picks it up is going to be entertained by it, and just to see John's artwork alone is going to be, I would hope, worth the price of admission. But it's a good story too.
Definitely.
You're a good team.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to host Laverne and Alexander, and allowing me to host John and McNally's. It's been a really, really wonderful evening. And I guess heading up to the hour here, I'll pass things back to John.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, Holly. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us here tonight in the Zoom webinar. To all of you watching live on YouTube, thank you for joining us as well. If you would like to revisit this evening or share the video with anybody who did not get a chance to join us, the video will be live on YouTube for the indefinite future, so please do feel free to share it around. For reference, we had mentioned Book Demons at the beginning of the event. You can follow Book Demons on Twitter or go to bookdemons.com. Please note the demons is spelled DAEMONS when you're typing that into your search bar. Again, thank you all for joining us here tonight. Copies of Hell's Flaw and the entirety of the Shame Saga are available from McNally Robinson Booksellers, and we'll correspond with Laverne and see if we can't lure him into the store to sign some of these copies for you.
I'll be there.
Fabulous. A deal has been struck. So thank you all once again. Thank you to the good folks at Renegade Arts Entertainment for publishing this and so many other incredible graphic works. Have a lovely night, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.